altitude restrictions on departures and missed approach procedures is one of the best examples of how pilots get sucked in by the automation.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've had a pilot turn to me and say, I'm just doing what the Garmin told me to do.
Yeah, they just blindly follow the GPS. But the Garmin 400-500 series is not very good at showing the pilots the altitude, distance, and climb restrictions in certain procedures. This is a total sucker trap. Peter, let's show them an example. Let's take a look at the Van Nuys missed approach. Here is the ILS to runway 16 right at Van Nuys, California. And if we zoom in on the missed approach, it says on the initial climb to cross Van Nuys 1.5 DME or Fillmore VOR 101 radial at or below 1,750 feet. That's a climb restriction. Why are they restricting us to 1750? The reason is the Burbank localizer goes right over the top of the airport, and it's very possible to actually go missed at Van Nuys and have an airliner at 3,000 feet on the ILS runway 8 into Burbank, and that only gives ATC about 1,000 feet of separation. Once you comply with the restriction, then it's a climbing left-hand turn to 4,000 outbound via the Van Nuys 101 radial to the Amtra intersection and then hold as published. If we take a look at the Garmin, you can see here on the missed approach, all the Garmin gives us is Amtra with a course of 101. So we ask ourselves, well, how are we going to comply with the 1.5 restriction, right? You have to maintain 1750 until crossing Van Nuys 1.5 DME. So that leads us to pro tip number 1. Set up the Garmin 2 as a DME. Let's go to the video. So as I'm getting set up for the ILS runway 16 right into Van Nuys, I activate the Van Nuys VOR, Victor November Yankee, in Garmin number 2, and I suspend waypoint sequencing. When I go missed, Garmin number 1 gives me a course to fix to Amtra of 101, but I first need to deal with the climb restriction, so I look to my Garmin 2 for my distance readout. And once it reaches 1.5 nautical miles, I can continue my climb to 4,000 and turn left and intercept the 101 course inbound to Amtra, already displayed on Garmin number 1. So we showed you a trap on a missed approach. Now let's show you a restriction trap on a departure. Let's go to Teterboro, New Jersey, the Teterboro 6 departure. Here's the hot plate. If we take a look in the very center of the plate, there's Teterboro Airport. And what we're planning on doing is actually departing Teterboro towards the northwest, towards the Cote intersection. And if we read the routing says, as per notes or via vector to assigned route/fix. And the Cote routing basically says that you're going to head out to Saks. Eventually the controller will say to you, you're cleared direct to Sparta, which is Sierra Alpha X-ray. And then in the Garmin, we would have a flight plan built up with the Cote's intersection, which would give us a 311 course. So now if we take a look at the initial climb, the takeoff for runway 24, it says climb via heading 240. Upon reaching 1,500 feet, turn right to a heading of 280. We'll maintain 1,500 feet until Teterboro 4.5 DME. Then upon reaching the Teterboro 4.5 DME, we will climb and maintain 2,000. But if we go to the Garmin, look what we get.
Yeah, Masu, all we're getting here is runway 24 as the only waypoint in the departure. And you often see this with those radar departures that look like a big cloud of VORs. They're so complicated and there's so many options, the database designers just give up and they leave it to us to figure out how to do it.
So essentially what we have to do is we have to build the rest of the departure by hand. So first thing I'm going to do is turn my cursor on. I'm going to scroll on down and enter in the Teterboro VOR, because remember, that's what my restriction's based on. So Tango Echo Bravo, Northeast USA, I'll accept that. Then I'm going to scroll on down. I'm going to enter in the Sparta VOR, which has the 3-letter identifier of Saks, Sierra Alpha X-ray. I have no idea where the X is in Sparta. And then I'll enter in the Cote intersection, Charlie, Oscar, Alpha, Tango Echo. Press enter. So now that I've entered all that into my flight plan, I'm going to go back to the moving map. I'm just going to zoom out. I just want you to get the picture and to see what I've done here. And as I zoom out, I'll just have to declutter a little bit to give you the better idea. As you can see there, I've got Saks and coat. And now if I zoom on back in, I'm actually sitting on runway 24. You can see the Teterboro VORs off the end of the runway there. So let's go ahead and fly the actual departure. You can see my ground speed starting to increase, and note that Teterboro is my active waypoint. The DME is counting me down to Teterboro, right? But watch this. As the airplane gets close to Teterboro, the Garmin advances to the next leg, which is actually Sparta. So Sparta, which is SAC, Sierra Alpha X-Ray, has now become the active waypoint. Well, folks, that's bad. Remember, the restriction was based off Teterboro. So now that SAC is my active waypoint, all the Garmin is simply going to do is count me down to SAC. And that's not going to help me fly the departure. So that being said, tip number 2 is you need to suspend sequencing on the first waypoint until the restriction passes. Let's go to the video and show it to you. On the Teterboro 6 departure, when I push the procedure button in the Garmin and select the departure, all it gives me is runway 24. So what I do is go into the flight plan and add Teterboro, then SAC, and then coat. And then I simply push the OBS button to suspend waypoint sequencing on Teterboro until I've complied with the restriction. When I first fly the departure, I fly runway heading up to 1,500 feet. Once I reach 1,500 feet, I turn right to a heading of 280. As I roll out on the heading of 280, I look for Teterboro 4.5 DME. Here's Teterboro 4.5 DME. I can now start my climb to 2,000 feet. Now that I've reached 2,000 feet, what I like to do is actually place my cursor on Sparta. In the event of lost comm, I'll know what waypoint to fly to. So we looked at a restrictions trap on a missed approach. We looked at a restriction trap on the departure. Now let's take a look at a restriction trap on an approach. So here is the RNAV runway 12 Yankee and Zulu approaches at Bishop, California. And if we zoom in, you can see here the approaches look very similar. Note the crazy mountainous terrain on all sides of the airport. This airport is completely surrounded by hazardous terrain. And if we go to the profile and the minimums of the approach, you can see here on the left for the Yankee, the straight in landing runway 12, the LNAV MDA is 6,600. We look at the Zulu approach on the right, and we've got an LNAV MDA of 4,580. That's a 2,000 foot difference. And we go into the Garmin says, would you like to shoot the RNAV 12 Yankee or Zulu? How do you know which one to pick? If we look at the profile view on the Zulu approach on the right, notice there are 2 additional step downs inside of the final approach fix. We've got CMOS with a crossing height of 6,100 feet, and we've got FOMA at 5,200. So I know what you're saying to yourself, hey, I can handle those step downs no problem. I'm going to choose the Zulu approach.
Yeah, wait a minute there, Mossy. There's also a note down here on the LNAV minimums, and that's giving us a climb restriction of 325 feet per nautical mile all the way up to 11,000 feet. And not a lot of aircraft can meet that climb restriction. I mean, that's a pretty deep hole that you're getting yourself into if you fly to those lower minimums, and you need to be able to climb out of it.
I think the key point here is, remember, as you look on the left, the approach for RNAV runway 12 Yankee, and you look on the right for the RNAV 12 Zulu approach, remember, the Garmin does not say to you, hey, there is a climb restriction. And if you choose the wrong approach, you may have dug yourself into a hole that could have catastrophic consequences.
So don't forget to look at the charts before you decide which approach you're going to shoot.
Just remember, the Garmin will not protect you from restrictions. You need to make sure you understand what the procedure is and what the Garmin will and will not do for you.